This is Incredible Health with Dr. David Vitko.
Good morning, my dear friends. I am so excited to have one more day to spend with you. You never know. You never know what we got left. And I just love coming in on Sunday and sharing a little bit of my health knowledge. And that's what I like to claim is a little bit because, as a good friend of mine likes to say, in the medical profession, a little bit of knowledge can be dangerous. And that is true. And so we want to be careful about what we spread around as being knowledge and try not to get anybody into any trouble with their health. So we try to promote things here that are going to only get you healthier. And I work really hard at sorting through the garbage that's out there on the internet and bringing you good information. And this week I'm testing a new pain medication on myself, and I'm going to give you the lowdown on that. You know, CBD is all the rage right now. And, man, if you listen to the people that promote it, it's the best thing since sliced bread. And I have an opinion on that, but it's a short-sighted opinion, and we'll see as time goes on. But I'm going to talk about that a little bit today. I might sound a little bit hoarse. Don't know what's going on. I use heat treatment every day to try to control and eliminate my cancer. And I pushed that heat to the extreme and woke up this morning with a congested feeling. I don't know where that came from. But so if you'll bear with me on my voice, I'll try to get through the day. So if you'd like to call in, if you have a comment or a question, the number here is 330-729-9977. That's 729-9977. And be happy to take your call, and let's talk about stuff that's relevant to health and to keeping people healthy. And I'm particularly interested in your cancer cases. People have had cancer, who have overcome cancer, whether with traditional treatment or without, and people who have had cancer that's gone into remission and then returned. Those are the things that I'm most interested in. So, but we can talk about pretty much anything that you'd like to call in on, and we'll leave Ohio State out of the picture. Don't really like to talk about things that depress me, but so we'll move on. So I also like to talk to you today because we really need to touch base on New Year's resolutions, because New Year's is right around the corner. It's an odd year for us. We have a wedding in the family on New Year's Eve, and so it's kind of changes the whole complexity or the whole complexion of New Year's this year, in that we have a wedding that night. And of course, there's going to have to be some consumption of wedding cookies, because in this part of the country, that is the true mark of a great wedding, I'm told. And my wife's family being mostly Italian, they like to make sure we have a great cookie table at the wedding. So I'm sure I'm going to veer off my diet just a little bit for an evening and enjoy some of those cookies. But New Year's is a time when people want to make radical changes and to their health. And, health can be changed radically, both directions. You can have radical improvement. You can have a radical undermining of your health that can both come very easily and very quickly. And so I've recognized that recently. But, the radical improvement I've demonstrated in my book, Perfect Cholesterol in Just 3 Weeks Without Drugs, in that I demonstrated that just through dietary change, you can lower your cholesterol up to 72 points or more in just 3 weeks. And I've done that with many a patient. I've had many a person who just simply bought my book and followed the advice in the book and reported the same thing. 70, 75, 80 points in 3 weeks. Now, you know what? About probably 5 to 8 years ago, that really was an astounding thing to hear that you could change your cholesterol that much just with diet. And there still are outliers out there. There still are people, there are still scientists who will argue against that point and argue that you need, the statin drugs. You need the drugs that are powerful. But there are studies that demonstrate that diet is just as powerful, and I personally would argue that diet is more powerful in controlling cholesterol than anything else you can do. And I love it when I have patients come into my office and say, Doc, I tried to make some changes in my diet, but my cholesterol didn't go down, and I just think I'm just one of those people with that, what do they call it? It's in your family. Well, it's called familial hypercholesterolemia. And these are families in which, cholesterol is naturally higher and you just can't get it down to within normal levels. Well, who's to say what's normal? I tend to believe that there are differences in genetic makeup with some families, and some families probably have naturally higher cholesterol. Not saying super high, because my wife's family tends toward the familial hypercholesterolemia, so it's a natural tendency toward higher cholesterol. And yet when my wife followed the diet in my book, she lowered her cholesterol 30 points in just 3 weeks. So it can be done, and it is true that the basis of high cholesterol lies in your diet. And when you take the animal fats out of your diet, your cholesterol comes down. And there are other little nuances in your diet that can change other factors as well. For instance, when you eat complex carbohydrates or more proteins, your blood sugar is more easily controlled by the body. If you have high triglycerides and you simply cut back the amount of food, the amount of calories you eat every day over a prolonged period of time, I promise you your triglycerides are coming down. If you drink alcohol and you have high triglycerides, you need to eliminate the alcohol, because the body looks at alcohol just like sugar, basically. And it will jack your triglycerides up by creating more fat in the blood. It'll also mess with your blood sugar levels. So, there are many little nuances and things you can do to alter your health very quickly. But, with New Year's coming up, I like to remind people that it's not what you do quickly that really is the essence of health. It is what you do consistently and stick with and make part of your daily routine that truly makes the difference. Because when you do things quickly, you tend to also fall off of them quickly. Like people that after New Year's or at New Year's, oh man, I'm going to get on the exercise habit. I'm going to hit the exercise hard every day. And you see this mostly people in their 20s and 30s and so on. But the fact of the matter is, it is the people who start out very gradually and are persistent and find a way to sneak that exercise habit in every day, even to a small degree. Even me right now, folks, with the cancer that I'm fighting, I exercise every day. Now, it's only 5 or 6 minutes on the Airdyne bike and another 10 minutes of a little bit of light weights for resistance training, just to keep my tone up and a little bit of strength. But that makes a world of difference in your metabolism when you start the day that way. You start with a leg up, so to speak. You start with a foothold on the day, and you're able to get through the day much better and at a higher physiological level, to where your body is functioning at a higher level of efficiency just by that one small thing that you do in the morning. If you can do it in the morning, it's great. If you do it in the evening, that's fine too. but I believe morning is the best. So, 5 to 10 to 15 minutes tops. And if you have something cooking, you're doing something else in the morning for a short time, it doesn't take long to get this little bit of exercise in, and you're on your way. So, if you're looking for a New Year's resolution and you're going to start exercising, trust me on this. Start out gradually. Don't jump in and buy one of these fancy $3,000 exercise bikes with the video and the coach and all the other things. Those are great. You got the extra money, you want to spend that. Odds are you're not going to stick with it, though. Because, we see these people on TV and, they're sweating and they're really making a great effort and they're really pushing themselves to the limit. Having been there and having been someone who has pushed myself to the limit exercise-wise, I can tell you that that's a tough road to hoe and a tough way to maintain good health. You want just slow and steady. Remember the turtle, hare and the tortoise. Slow and steady wins the race. And that truly is how you win the race in both diet and exercise, and then in health in general. Because when you do things steadily and you do them consistently, your body gets into a groove and then it's used to it. And you get to the point where you get in this habit. And when you miss that habit, all of a sudden, you don't feel as good and you take notice of it and you'll more than likely get back to that habit. And I found this to be true for many, many, many patients that if they just work at it for a period of time, work around the rough edges, it's a lot easier to get through those days when you're exercising a small amount and trying to make incremental changes to your diet rather than jumping off the cliff and hoping that, you can, really make radical changes in your diet and exercise and turn things around and within 3 months be superhuman. It's ridiculous to go that route. And I was equally ridiculous at one time in my life that I did those things. When we're young, we're somewhat irrational. And when I say young, I mean probably under 40. And we do things, we think we can control things. And unfortunately, the truth of the matter is that many things in our lives are out of our control. And let's just find a way to make things fit into our day and to get into a routine, and it'll make a world of difference. It really will. So let's aim for those small goals, and you can make New Year's resolutions successful. Nothing I hate more than hearing these shows that talk about, we're going to make these resolutions and we're going to do this and we're going to see how long we can stay with this and that. It doesn't do you much good to stay with an exercise program for a month and then drop off. You might get a little bit. You're just starting to see the beginning of the improvement. And so if you want long-term improvement, you want long-term good health, you want the ability to fight disease if it happens to you, even something like cancer, you better be in a good starting position. And you can get there by decreasing your animal fats, increasing your fruit and vegetable intake, and doing that consistently, and just adding a little bit of exercise to it. Doesn't take all that much. So I had a friend of mine sent me an article on, let's see here what it is. Well, I had one. It was an article that was from the Harvard Health Letter. And they said this very thing. And the funny thing is, they could write this same health letter year after year, and it would have the same positive effect, and probably the same degree of negative effect, or people that they don't affect. And they say the difference, the difference a healthy diet can make in by eating more unprocessed, plant-based foods is one of the best ways you can protect your heart. Well, I'll add to that you can protect your heart and other organs, including your brain function. Study after study now has shown the connection between how you eat and things like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, the neurological diseases. And so we need to think about, where you want to be as you get older. I have a good friend who, when I found out I had cancer, we were talking about, the need for treatment and my desire to stay a natural route and not get hacked all to pieces and burned and poisoned and all that stuff in the effort to save my life. And, his words were, well, who wants to live to be 80 anyway? Well, I do, if I can live to be 80 and be in good health. And I know I still have that potential, folks. I have cancer that I'm fighting, and I think I'm making progress against it, and I'll talk about that a little bit in the second half of the show. But I want to live to be 80 if I can do it in a healthful way. If I could be the 80 that my dad was, I'll happily take that 80, because at 80, my dad was still in pretty good shape. I could still see him climb a ladder up onto a roof, which made me cringe. But, still he had that work mentality in his mind and that ability, and he still had enough strength to do those things. My brother and I were just talking about this over Christmas, how when he and I put a new roof on my dad's house for him, and he was right up there with us, and he was in his 70s at that time. But, you can get away with things, but you want to be careful. But, that's the kind of vitality I want in my 70s and 80s. If I can't have that, then life to me is not that significant, because what level of function I have is very important to me, and I want to be able to enjoy life. So just to kind of give you a little clue as to what I'll get into here, I started a new treatment for pain yesterday. My cancer, in my opinion, is improving. And I know that's a subjective opinion, and I know there are people out there, I know doctors that listen to the show, and they're probably going, yeah, well, subjective. And subjective, I understand the difference between subjective and objective, changes. And when it's your own body, everything is subjective to a point. But there are things that I notice that are definitely consistent and outside the realm of, I think this is going on, and surmising that, I'm headed one direction or another. There are things going on that are obvious to me. And so those I consider to be more objective findings. And I will have objective findings somewhere down the road, good or bad, because about mid-January, maybe toward the end of January, we're going to do a new PET scan, which I was going to try to do before the end of the year, but we have too many things going on really to do it. And I really don't feel like I'm physically to the point where my PET scan is going to show dramatic change. And so I do feel like things have improved in many ways. And so I'm not sure what's going to show on a PET scan, but I'm not going to spend the $1,500 to $2,000 to get a PET scan until I'm sure that there is significant change. And I thought I could squeeze it in before the end of the year while the deductibles met this year, but I think we're just going to wait because there's too many hectic things going on at the end of the year here. And it'll be interesting, give it a little bit more time and see which way it goes. I do this heat treatment every day, do a dry sauna, which I spoke about a little bit last week with my difficult journey to Akron and back. It should have been a 4-hour trip, and we ended up spending 14 hours at it, but it was worth it because I do the sauna pretty much every day, at least 5 days a week. And I sit in a sauna at 133 average degrees for an hour every day, 5 days a week, in an effort to kill cancer cells. And I believe it's making a difference. You definitely feel the difference at that. Your pulse rate goes up. Your blood pressure drops somewhat, although not as much as a hot bath, I've noticed. But so the dry sauna is more tolerable because of that. And matter of fact, yesterday I spent an hour in there, and it was totally tolerable, and I felt really good the whole time. And I felt a little drained when I got out. Always when I get out after an hour of heat, I spend at least an hour or so sleeping, because it sucks the energy right out of your body. And so in my mind, in many ways, it's almost like a natural chemotherapy, because it is a powerful treatment. There's no question that it makes a change in your body that you notice. And so, I'm going to stick with that. And so then yesterday, about a week ago, a friend of mine was in my office and said they had a health problem, and they said, you really need to consider doing CBD. And, I've been hearing about CBD for 2 years, and I've had, salesmen try to hook me into selling the stuff and this and that and the other thing. And frankly, all I've heard so far is anecdotal evidence from it, and it hasn't impressed me all that much. And so right after the break, I'll get into my experience with it so far. I've only used it for 1 day, so I'm not going to pass judgment on it totally. This stuff's expensive, I'll tell you that. And so I'm looking for a form of pain relief in which I can decrease the amount of ibuprofen I use and Tylenol, and to decrease the occasional hydrocodone that I have to use when the pain is serious. And if I can find something that can give me a more gentle approach to that, then I'm going to do it. So I'm going to give this a good try, and we're going to see where it takes us. So we do have a phone call, but we're coming up against a break here, and we're going to, once we get to the break, we'll get through that. We'll come back. We'll take the phone call if the person hangs on there. So just hang on. And you are listening to Enjoy Incredible Health with Dr. David Vitko. I am a chiropractic physician with 34 years experience in helping your friends and neighbors, and hopefully you, to figure out how to live a longer, healthier, happier life, because we're all happier when we're healthier, right? And those of you over the age of 35 or 45 know exactly what I'm talking about. And if you're over the age of 60, you're going, yeah, I know what you mean. It's you can be a little bit healthier. It can make a world of difference in your happiness, and vice versa. I think I see this in my self-treatment of cancer, that if I can alter the way I look at things, I can influence the pain level that I have. And it might sound funny, but it is true. And, it really does work. So, and a little bit of prayer goes a long way. Dr. David Vitko will be back in just a couple of minutes, folks, so hang on.
Welcome back to Incredible Health with Dr. David Vitko.
Alrighty, we're back. So, I like to talk about the heat treatment that I use in treating my cancer, and I found it to be very effective. And whether it's effective in a positive way or negative way, the jury's out on that yet. But I feel positive changes from it. It beats me up. I do it every day. And maybe that frequency is too much, but I don't know. This is an uncharted territory, and I believe that it's a milder form of sort of like a chemo for the body, if you will, because there are chemical changes that take place in the body when you heat it up. Physiological changes, immunological changes. So the immune system is boosted with heat, but it drains you. And I do it every day, just once a day, and I don't think I could do it more often than that. But if I do it less often than that, I feel like I would be missing an opportunity to keep the ball rolling, if you will. So a little bit of uncharted territory. I'd be lying if I told you that it was I knew exactly what I was doing, because I'm learning as I go, folks. And I can tell you that it does create a lot of stress on my body when I do it each day. But the next day, I feel these small incremental changes. And that brings me back to the pain, because the pain that I feel now is different than the pain I felt before. I don't specifically have a lot of pain when I swallow anymore. I can pretty much eat whatever I want within reason. I still need to be careful, but there is significant change in that. There's no question about it in my mind, in that the way I eat has influenced that. And, I've been trying to stay mostly with a largely liquefied diet. I mean, I used to puree my soups and stuff. Now I eat my soups just as they're cooked. I don't puree them. So if there's chicken in it or noodles in it or, whatever else in it, I just make sure I chew it up good, and I have no problem with them, which I could not do before. And I know that I could eat a piece of meat, hamburger, steak if I needed to, if I decided I wanted to. It's just not part of my diet right now. But so I know that the pain has improved in that way. And my pain level, when it is at its worst, is pretty bad. But it's only for a short time, and it seems like a much shorter time now. And it seems like it's only the worst pain that I have now is when I swallow pills. And I'm sick and tired of pills, to be honest with you. And some I need to keep taking, and some I choose to take because I think they have a good overall effect on the pain. And but like iron still really bothers me. But my energy levels are back up to the point where functioning probably at 60% of normal, which for me, compared to where I was just a couple weeks ago, is pretty darn good. And so I'm going to keep going that direction. So I brought this CBD oil into the picture because a friend of mine highly recommended it and said it helped her. It's not cheap. Just a small bottle of this CBD oil is like $100. And if you want the really potent stuff, it's like $500. And so far, to be honest with you, I took some yesterday for the first time. There's no THC in this, so there's no high with it. It's the hemp oil with mixed in with olive oil. And to be honest with you, I feel like I'm squirting olive oil into my mouth. There's no other flavor, and it just seems like olive oil. And so far, that seems like the pain relief that I've gotten. But I'm going to give it a try over the next week or two. After spending $100 on the bottle, I'm not going to let it sit and not try it. So we're going to try, see if I can wean myself off some of the other things. Take a little less Advil, a little less Tylenol. And I'm going to try very hard to take a lot less of the hydrocodone, which I don't take much of anyway, because I just don't like the way that stuff makes me feel. And but anyway, so the CBD oil, I'm going to give you my honest opinion week to week on that and let you know where we're at on that, because I know a lot of you have called in, and some have claimed it's wonderful, and some have made claims that, hey, it just didn't seem to do much. And personally, it's going to take me, I think, a week to figure out if it's making any difference or not. And I'll try to be as objective as I can about it. But I will tell you that I think it's highly overpriced for what you get out of it. No question in my mind. So anyway, we got a phone call. Let's see if Denny's still on the line. Good morning, Denny. What can I do for you?
Good morning, Doctor.
Sorry to make
Dr.
you wait.
Vitko. Good morning. No, that's all right. Real quick, back to the saunas. We have a sauna in our family for years, and I don't know how yours is designed, but our unit has a electric heating element, like an electric stove, and then above it is a rack of like lava rock.
Right.
And then you take a bucket of water and a ladle, and you can put water on those rocks when they got heated up, and that brings up the humidity. And that humidity and that heat combined is what really makes you open up your pores in that. Now, I don't know how yours is designed, but if you really want to get the heat, you raise the humidity.
No.
But
well, Denny, you're missing a little bit of the science on that. I've read really deeply into this and to understand the science. And there are probably some benefits to the steam sauna, but the dry sauna, trust me, I sweat buckets of water. And,
oh, yeah.
And the way the dry sauna works is that it actually is able to penetrate your skin to 2 or 3 inches deep and can have a profound effect on heating the body itself from the inside, basically. And steam is in direct contact. Steam is really not much different than a hot bath in that you have moisture in contact with your skin. And I'll tell you that it is much more comfortable in a dry sauna. I've done both, and I find it much more comfortable in a dry sauna, and you still get the same heat effect. And you sweat buckets. There's no question.
From experience, I disagree. I think that combination of the dry heat and the steam is what really kicks it in gear myself. But I'm just going from experience. But I haven't studied this. But this is just my experience of it.
I've spent a lot of time studying it because I wanted to understand it. Before I bought a dry sauna, I really wanted to know whether it's worth it, because to me, in some ways, it seemed kind of hokey. But it is a form of infrared heat, and the far infrared is known to penetrate the body, and whereas truly steam heat works from the outside in. And so, that's the difference. But I appreciate your call.
Do you sell your books down at the office?
Yeah, the cholesterol book, is available. You can call and order it on the phone if you want, or you can stop in. I'd love to meet you sometime. So. No,
I'm going to drive down there or get on a motorcycle down there somewhere. But if you have them handy there, I want to buy one of your books. I'm battling cholesterol, so.
Oh, we'll get that cholesterol thing on there. That's an easy issue, so believe it or not.
Oh, yeah, you think so?
Yeah.
You don't know how I eat.
Well, there is the problem, so. But I appreciate the call, Danny.
I've heard that. Okay. All right, thank you.
Have a great day. So, always fun to talk to Denny. The heat issue, folks, the dry sauna is, it's I think faster in some ways. It's more tolerable. I've been in the wet saunas and the steam saunas, and, matter of fact, steam saunas, it's been written in the literature that a steam sauna requires a higher temperature in order to maintain the steam. And we're talking the difference between a dry sauna at 120 to 130 degrees and a steam sauna at 180 to 190 degrees. And I'll tell you that, that dry sauna, it actually feels really good. But I don't care what you're doing for an hour, I start to get antsy after a while. And so I'm trying to take that time and learn to meditate a little bit, or to focus, or my choice of words is to pray. And, some people believe in prayer. I'm telling you that if you don't, you're missing out on something, whether it's your connection with God, which is how I look at it, or whether it's your ability to stimulate your body to do things in a greater way than it does normally. I believe that is the other part of that, because we are capable of so much more. It's been estimated that we use maybe I've read different estimates, 10 to 30% of our brain capacity. And I believe that, let's face it, we all know people that use way less than that. But if we can improve the way our body works by a smidgen, we can do tremendous things. And I recently got a card from someone that said that all things are possible through Jesus Christ. And, I find that to be true for myself, because that's where I turn for strength when things are at their worst. And that's new for me, folks. I'm not a guy that you would have said is deeply religious. I'm not heavily involved with the church or anything like that, although I do enjoy the message that I get from our minister at our church. And we go to Greenford Christian, and I do enjoy the message that we get from Sean over there and some of the other ministers. And the funny thing is, to me, it's like the show that I do on Sunday. I leave here and I go to church, and I hear parts of my thoughts in my show. Maybe not even things that I said, but I hear parts of my thoughts in my show in that sermon. It's a weird thing. And yeah, you could say, yeah, maybe that's totally objective too, but I don't think so. There is a connection there, and I'm not exactly sure what it is, but it's powerful, and at times it brings me to tears, and trying to learn to deal with that too. But I have noticed that issue, I've had this issue with easily coming to tears, and I still do. My kids were home for Christmas, and my daughter and my son-in-law and my son were all home for Christmas, and it was no easier to see them leave than any other time. But I was a little bit more composed, and I'm beginning to think that part of that has to do with my iron levels, and part has to do with my vitamin D levels. Because I've been taking iron and taking vitamin D3, and I've been eating the magic elixir for increasing your iron levels, and that is cream of wheat. And cream of wheat is a great way to enjoy something that is somewhat filling and that holds you over for a while, as long as you don't have wheat gluten issues. And one serving of cream and wheat gives you like 50% of your daily allowance of iron. So I take iron supplements. I'm trying to boost my iron, so I have to do more than just a daily allowance. And it does seem like it's making a difference. And so I think that those things, I think the D3 and the iron have improved my emotional state as well. And that's been a really good thing. And by the way, Christmas just passed. I hope you had a great Christmas. Mine was fantastic. To have your kids come home, I see them once, maybe twice a year, and it's just a really good feeling, and it's great to get together. My son's girlfriend didn't make it home with him this time; she had to work. But my daughter, my son-in-law, and my son and her are all gems, just wonderful people. And it's so great to spend time with them and our families. Got together with my wife's family, of course, as we always do every year, and my family, except for my oldest brother wasn't home from Minnesota, and just had a fantastic Christmas. And I hope all of you did too. It's not my favorite holiday historically, but it's becoming more so just because of the time I get to spend with family. And it makes a big difference. And my diet has changed, and I no longer drink a beer or two on Christmas Eve when we get together, and I think that allows me to focus more on family than the revelry. And so in many ways, I think that makes a big difference in how we celebrate. So New Year's is coming, not far off, folks, and right around the corner. And we have a big, we have big New Year's coming up. I have a nephew getting married New Year's Eve, which is an anomaly, and it should be interesting. And I'm sure it's one that he'll never forget his anniversary anyway, coming from a guy standpoint. But it should be interesting, and hopefully the weather holds up, and you all have a great New Year's Eve, too. And, New Year's Eve is a time to be thinking about that. People drink to excess and eat to excess New Year's Eve with the plan of getting up the next day and hitting the gym. How ridiculous is that? Let's think about using a little bit of restraint on New Year's Eve and get up and maybe beat everybody else to the punch and be bright-eyed and bushy-tailed on the first day of the new year. I like that idea. So it's Dr. David Vitko. We're going to be back in just a minute to finish up, and thanks so much for listening, folks.
Welcome back to Incredible Health with Dr. David Vitko.
Okay, let's see here. First thing I want to do is mention a recipe that my wife Nisi made last night, which is absolutely fantastic. We've made this in the past. I've raved about it in the past, and you know what? This is the time of year for soups, folks. Soups are great food, no matter what level of health you have or what level of health you want. A good, healthy soup is a great way to go. And when you make homemade soup, you know what goes into it, and you know what doesn't go into it. It may be equally as important. So we made this great salmon, shrimp, seafood, vegetable soup. And the recipe for it is on my Facebook page. So if you go to Facebook, you look up Dr. David Vitko. I forget if I put it on that one or on the Enjoy Incredible Health page, but one of the two pages, the recipe is on there. And let me tell you, if you like salmon, shrimp, you like seafood, I didn't think about even maybe adding a little bit of crab meat in there this time, but we were going to do that. But it's a combination of that and Nisi's favorite vegetable soup, which is just fantastic. And the funny thing about this soup is, like a lot of soups, the longer you let it sit, the better it tastes. So over the next several days, I know it's going to taste better and better each bowl I have. And we always make a big pot, keep a big pot in the refrigerator. And when it's time for a meal, that's the first thing comes to mind because it's easy. A couple of scoops in a bowl, heat it up in the microwave, boom, you got a great meal. And boy, nothing like soup. So get that recipe for salmon, shrimp, seafood, vegetable soup. And I really do love that. And I'll put some other recipes on there later on, some of the things that we eat. I haven't been able to eat this one because there is a tomato base in it. It uses a fancy tomato sauce from Gia Russa, which I love. And I've been trying, if anybody knows any of the folks from Gia Russa, I've been trying to get somebody on here from Gia Russa because I do like their products, and I would love to get them on here to talk about their family history and their business and, the foods that they produce. I believe they're high quality foods, and they're right here in our area, which is pretty cool stuff. One last thing, and next time we're going to talk about why do some cancers suddenly disappear without treatment. Don't forget the book that I mentioned, Radical Remission. Thank you to the kind lady from Boardman that brought a copy to my office. And this is Dr. David Vitko. You're listening to Enjoy Incredible Health, and we'll be back next week, folks.